The carp of my dreams.
A long time ago, in the Encho era, there lived in Madeira a monk named Kogi, recognized by everyone as an excellent painter. He did not limit himself to painting Buddhas, landscapes, birds or flowers. On days when he had no temple obligations, he would go to the lake in a small boat and exchange the fish that the fishermen had caught with their nets and hooks for money to release them again, watch them swim, and paint them. By doing this for years, Kogi became a very precise and skilled painter. Once, he was so focused on his painting that he fell asleep and dreamed that he had been in the water swimming with all kinds of fish, large and small. As soon as he got up, he drew exactly what he had seen and hung the painting on the wall. He called it the Ten of My Dreams. Surprised by the beauty of his paintings, people fought for a place in line to purchase them, but, although Kogi gladly gave his flowers, birds and landscapes to whoever wanted them, he stubbornly clung to his carp paintings. He said playfully,
"This monk will never give the fish he has raised to the lay people who kill living beings and eat their meat."
News of his paintings and his joke reached the entire kingdom. One year Kogi became ill, and after 7 days he suddenly closed his eyes, stopped breathing, and lost consciousness. Heartbroken, his disciples and friends gathered, but finding his chest warm, they sat around him to wait for his recovery. After 3 days, his arms and legs moved a little. He suddenly heaved a long sigh, opened his eyes, and stood up like someone waking up after a long sleep.
"I forgot about human affairs for a long time,"
he said to those around him.
"How many days have passed?"
His disciples answered him,
Master, you stopped breathing 3 days ago. The temple monks and all the other people who know you came to discuss the details of your funeral, but seeing that your chest was still warm, they kept an eye on you without putting you in a box, and now that you have come back to life, we rejoice not to have buried you."
Kogi nodded and said,
"I want someone to go to the house of Ardhanapati, the Terra officer, and tell him that I have mysteriously come back to life. The officer is currently pouring sake and preparing a thinly sliced fish. This person must ask you to interrupt your banquet for a moment for him to come to the temple. He will tell you that I must tell you a very strange story, and he will look carefully at what they are doing there. He will repeat my exact words and nothing more."
The messenger seemed hesitant, but he went to the mansion, transmitted his message to an intermediary, and very cautiously looked at what they were doing inside the mansion. The officer, his younger brother Juro, his servant Kamori and others were sitting in a circle drinking sake. The messenger was startled, because the scene was just as his teacher had described it. When they heard the message, the people in the officer's house were very surprised. Leaving food aside, the officer went to the temple along with Juro and Kamori. Raising his head from the pillow, Kogi thanked the visitor for his presence, and the officer, for his part, congratulated Kogi on his recovery. At that moment, Kogi said,
"Listen carefully to what I am going to tell you. Have you ever bought fish from a fisherman named Buncher?"
Surprised, the officer answered,
"Yes, of course. How do you know?"
Kogi told him.
"The fisherman entered your house carrying a basket with a fish more than a meter long. You were in the south wing playing Go with your younger brother. Kamori was sitting next to you eating a large peach as he watched you play. Delighted by the size of the fish the man had brought, you handed him a tray of peaches and shared your sake with him. The cook took the fish, swollen with pride, and cut it into thin slices. Am I wrong about something?"
Hearing all this, the officer and his men implored him, full of confusion and suspicion, to explain how he knew these details. Kogi explained to them.
The suffering caused by my illness was unbearable. Without realizing that I had stopped breathing, I took my cane and went out the door, hoping to relieve my feverish state. Then my discomfort subsided and I felt like a caged bird returning to the kingdom of heaven. Walking through mountains and villages, I arrived again at the edge of the lake. When I saw the jade-colored water, I felt reality fading and I thought I should swim a little, so, taking off my habits, I jumped into the water, dove to the bottom of the lake and swam here and there, frolicking to my heart's content, despite not being used to water since I was a child. Now I realize it was all a silly dream. A man cannot swim in water with the ease of a fish. I wished I could behave like a fish. Near me I found a large fish who told me, "The master's wish will be granted. Please wait here." The fish disappeared. A man cannot swim in water with the ease of a fish. The fish disappeared into the depths, and suddenly a man dressed in a cape and crown headed towards me, riding the same fish that had spoken to me and followed by numerous fish. He told me, "I bring a message from the god of the lake. Reverend monk, you have acquired much merit by freeing creatures captured by men. Now you have entered the water and you want to swim like a fish. We will dress you like a golden carp so you can enjoy the pleasures of the aquatic world. But you must be careful and not let yourself be tempted by the fragrance of the bait, get caught, and lose your life." After conveying the message to me, he disappeared. Astonished, I inspected my body and discovered that it had acquired shiny, golden scales. I had become a carp. Not surprised by my condition, I shook my tail, waved my fins, and walked around as I pleased. First I swam on the waves formed by the winds blowing from Mount Niagara, and then, wandering along the edge of the Great Bay of Shiga, I was amazed to see people walking around, so close to the water that their skirts became wet. I tried to dive to the depths where the imposing Mount Hira prints its reflection, but I could not hide, because the lamps of the Cat-Ada fishermen attracted me irremediably as if I were dreaming. The moon resting on the waters of that dark night like a wild berry illuminated the peak of Mount Kagami and beautifully removed the shadows of the 80 corners of the 80 ports. The islands of Okino and Chikubu, as well as the red wooden fence reflected on the surface of the water, amazed me. When I woke up from my dreams, I was among the algae through which an Asazuma boat was passing, propelled by the winds of Mount Ibuki. I dodged the Yabase rower's skillful oar, only to be chased away by the steps of the Sita Bridge guard. When the sun began to warm up, I went up to the surface, and when the wind became strong, I dove into the depths. Suddenly, hunger attacked me, and I looked here and there for something to eat. I swam frantically without finding anything until I came across the fishing line that Bunshur had suspended in the water. The bait had an overwhelming fragrance. Then I remembered the lake god's warning. I am a disciple of Buddha, I told myself. Am I going to stoop to eating fish bait just because I couldn't find something to eat? So I walked away. As time went by, my hunger became more intense and I reconsidered my position, thinking, I can't take it anymore. If I swallow the bait, will I be foolish enough to get caught? I've known Bunshur for a long time, why would I care? So I took the bait. Quickly, Bunshur pulled the line and caught me. Hey, what are you doing? I shouted, but pretending not to hear me, he tied my neck with the rope, tied his boat in the middle of the reeds of the lake, put me in a basket, and entered your house. You were in the south wing playing Go with your younger brother. Kamori was nearby, eating fruit. Seeing the big fish that Bunshur brought, everyone was happy and congratulated him. At that point, I spoke to all of you. Have they forgotten Kogi? Release me, I implore you. Let me go back to the temple. I shouted again and again, but you insisted not to hear me and only applauded with pleasure. The cook pressed my eyes hard with the fingers of his left hand, took a very sharp knife with his right, put me on the cutting board and was about to cut me when I cried out in agony, "Is there any reason why this should happen? Hurt a disciple of Buddha like this? Help me! Help me!" But no one listened to me. When I felt like I was going to be chopped, I woke up from my dream.
Everyone in the room was deeply moved and amazed.
Thinking about the teacher's story,
said the officer,
I remember seeing the fish's mouth move, but I didn't hear any voice. I can't believe I saw that with my own eyes.
Then the officer sent a messenger to his mansion and ordered him to return the remaining pieces of fish to the lake. After this, Kogi made a full recovery and lived for many years until he died of old age. As his end approached, he took all the carp he had drawn and released them into the lake, where the fish abandoned the paper and silk to swim freely in the water. For this reason, none of Kogi's paintings survive. A disciple of his, Naramitsu, inherited the divine gift of Kogi and became very famous. It is said in a very ancient story that Naramitsu painted a chicken on a sliding door in the Kannon Palace and that when a Real chicken saw it, he pecked it.